Dear students, our today's lecture is devoted to the problems and main tasks of educational psychology. So one of the most important problems of educational psychology is the problem of ratio of learning and mental development. The problem in question is a derivative of the general scientific problems of the relationship between the biological and social in a person, or as problems of genotypic and environmental conditional of the human psyche and behavior. The problem of genetic sources of psychology and human behavior is one of the most important in the psychological and pedagogical sciences. After all, the fundamental solution of the question of the possibilities of teaching rising children of a person in general. According to the modern science, it is almost impossible to directly influence through the training and upbringing of the genetic apparatus, and therefore that which is given genetically cannot be rehabilitated. On the other hand, education and training themselves have tremendous potential in terms of mental development of an individual, even if they do not affect the genotype itself and do not affect organic processes at all. Another problem which we are going to consider during this lecture is connected with the previous one, is the problem of the ratio of training and education. The processes of training and education in their unity represent the pedagogical process, the purpose of each, which is education, development, and the formation of personality. In essence, both of them occur in the interaction of teacher, of course, and the student. An educator and a student, an adult and a child who are in certain conditions of life, in a certain environment, in educational environment in our case. The circle of the problem and the consideration includes a number of questions which we are going to answer during the practical lessons. So how do these processes entangle and interpret each other? What is the impact of various activities on training and education? What is the psychological mechanisms of learning, the formation of skills, habits, and the assimilation of social norms and behavior? What is the difference of pedagogical influence in training and education? So these questions will be answered during the practical lesson.
So we can conclude that educational psychology as a scientific discipline studies the psychological foundations of teaching and learning. However, despite its long history, the field still faces several complex problems that continue to evolve with changes in society, technology, and education systems. This diagram presents four key problem areas in educational psychology: child development, learning processes, motivation, assessment, and evaluation. Each of these areas presents unique challenges that educators and researchers must address to improve the quality of education. Let's begin with the first problem, child development. Understanding how children grow intellectually, emotionally, and socially is one of the most fundamental tasks of educational psychology. The main challenge lies in recognizing that each child develops at their own pace and under different conditions. Teachers often face difficulties in meeting the diverse developmental needs of students within the same classroom. For example, some students may show advanced cognitive abilities but struggle emotionally, while others may be socially active but have difficulties with abstract thinking. Educational psychologists aim to create teaching approaches that support the holistic development of every learner, taking into account individual, cultural, and environmental differences. The second key problem is learning processes. Learning is a complex psychological phenomenon that involves attention, memory, thinking, and perception. One of the central questions in educational psychology is how to make learning meaningful and effective for all students. Researchers study how different methods, such as problem-based learning, project work, or digital tools, influence the way students acquire knowledge. Another challenge is understanding how learners process and retain information in an area of information overload. Educational psychologists also explore how emotional factors and stress affect cognitive functioning, aiming to design strategies that enhance focus, comprehension, and retention. The third major problem area is motivation. Motivation determines the level of effort and persistence students put into learning. However, maintaining high motivation in the classroom is one of the most difficult tasks for teachers. Many students face internal barriers such as anxiety, low self-esteem, or lack of interest in the subject. At the same time, external factors such as grades, parental pressure, or social expectations may easily encourage or suppress learning motivation. Educational psychology examines how intrinsic motivation, the joy of learning itself, can be strengthened through autonomy, curiosity, and positive reinforcement. The challenge is to shift the focus from learning for grade to learning for growth. Finally, the fourth problem is assessment and evaluation. Evaluating learning outcomes is necessary, but it is also one of the most controversial issues in education. Traditional testing often measures only memorization, not understanding or creativity. This creates stress and limits students' ability to demonstrate their true potential. Educational psychologists work on developing more objective, fair, and comprehensive forms of assessments, including formative assessment, portfolio evaluation, and self-assessment. The goal is to transfer evaluation from a punitive process into a supportive one that promotes reflection and growth.
And I'm very thankful for your time. See you next time.